So what's up guys, and welcome back to Motorcycles Off-Road. Man, when I think back a year ago when I started this channel with 0 subscribers, it's amazing, and I thank you guys for all the support. Today's video, we're going to talk about the top mods for the Honda 300 Rally. In the mods, I will give an explanation of why I think these mods are good and how they've worked out for me, so a little summary of each one as I go over it. So a lot of the mods I'm featuring here will get dedicated videos in the near future, so be sure to subscribe if you're interested. Also, real quick before we start the video, why not pick up a Honda CRF300 Rally t-shirt on our website at motorcyclesoffroad.com. It'd be a great gift for anyone who has a 300L Rally, or even just for yourself. Nothing wrong with that. Alright, let's get right into the video. Okay, so on to the mods. When it comes to putting these mods in a particular order, it was actually hard for me. I'm torn between protection, ability off-road, performance, so it's very hard to classify which ones I should show first. So just know in the takeaway, I think 1 through 5 could be switched in any order, and they're all beneficial to making this motorcycle more customized for you and just better overall than stock performance. That being said, I think the biggest bang for your buck is probably an ECU. Now I've worked with Maverick at 550 Performance on 2 bikes now, 3 different tunes, and so far the experience has been excellent. Now why do I say this is the biggest bang for your buck? Because you actually don't have to change anything else on this motorcycle to get the performance. Now that being said, this is an option only for people like the United States who have this particular design ECU. I just want to put that out there. There is options for other people, you just have to look into it, but where I'm at, a 550 Performance ECU can offer multiple benefits even if you keep the bike stock. The 87 octane improved from now 3 people I've talked to has made the bike so much better. I also understand that United States octane is a bit different than other places in the world, and my tunes are all for 91 octane. This offers amazing throttle response. The fueling's remapped everywhere, in idle and cruising, improve the rev limiter. There's a whole list of things that this mod will change for the better. In fact, even get rid of the 5K rattle. Now if you send Maverick your ECU, this will only cost you $150 American. Now you could also decide to get a brand new ECU from him. This will be $300, and then you'll be able to swap back to stock at any point in time. I have a full video coming out soon where I test the ECU back to stock by doing multiple acceleration pulls from different speeds. I'm going to calculate the total performance. But the thing you can't see in a video like that is the amazing throttle response and just pep that this adds to the motorcycle. So I decided to make that my number 1. Number 2, which goes hand to hand with the ECU, exhaust and intake. I know these could be 2 separate mods, but I want to put them as one because essentially they're both basically airflow. Now for the 300L and the Rally, I went with the DNA intake, which I can't speak much about that because this is the only one I ever tried. All I can say is when it gets dirty and filthy on the outside, the inside is completely clean, which means nothing is getting into my engine. And then I use the clean kit to clean it up, let it rest for a couple hours till it's nice and dry, pop it back in. When it comes to exhaust, first I had the Yoshimura, and now I've been using Black Widow. I feel like honestly Black Widow is probably the way to go, is because to satisfy a high flow situation for your ECU, you can spend as little as $200 to get the rear slip-on assembly. And also they have tons of different options with tons of different tones to actually tune how loud or how deep you want the sound to be. Once again, in an upcoming video, I'm going to completely test 2 different Black Widow exhausts I have for my bike. We're going to use the dB meter, and we're just going to overall compare it to stock versus the Yoshimura so you guys can hear a good sound test. That video will be coming soon, but I will say that I really like an aftermarket exhaust. I don't mean an obnoxiously loud one that everybody can hear, but I mean I like to hear the tone, and I also like to be able to get a feel for my bike and what RPM it's in. I think it's kind of nonsense to open up your exhaust and start cutting out your spark arrestor and all this to get a little more airflow. I don't think that's the way to go. I think this is an inexpensive way to improve the performance on your motorcycle, and once again, the throttle response is so much better, but I definitely recommend getting the ECU when you do the exhaust and the intake. Next, I'll have to say bars and handguards. Now with my 300L, I went with a CR high bend in red or the Cherubies handguards. And I really think it had a great look to it and it was very good. Gave me no issues, durable, I dropped the bike, had no problems. So I can give you an idea what they look like. I didn't see anyone else sporting the white Cherubies. I think they tie the bike in well. My Rally is set up a little bit different, and that is because these bars and handguards came on the motorcycle. This go around, we're rocking the Tusk handguards and a 1 1/8 inch fat bars. Honestly, I usually don't like fat bars. I think a standard thick aluminum 7/8 inch bar is all you need. The fat bar is supposedly, you'll never bend them, but I honestly never ran into any problems bending my other bars. I can kind of give you a look at what both of these look like side by side, and you can make the decision for yourself. The major point is I like to bring the sweep a little bit higher so it's easier for me to stand and ride, and I like the protection to protect my levers. I usually saw the little knob off the levers and then use a file to smooth it out so it fits nicely inside the handguards. The reason why I see those are there and what I've always been told is so when you fall, you don't impale yourself with the lever. But with the handguards, there's no chance of that happening anyway, plus it just gives you more space inside the guards. Comfort mod, I really recommend doing. Next is overall protection. There's multiple different ways to protect your motorcycle, and when it comes to the 300 Rally, I highly recommend you getting crash bars, and of course a skid plate is always necessary when you're doing rocky terrain. Almost any terrain really. The stock skid plate is just plastic. Now see, when I bought my Rally, I bought it secondhand. The person who had it before me had cracked his fairings, so he cut them. But he did put a nice robust skid plate, so I'm happy for that. And there's multiple different designs out there. There's ones that go over top of the stock fairings. There's ones where you eliminate the bottom. You really have to pick what you want. On my 300L, I used a 250L Acerbis skid plate, which was a plastic one. I like the plastic better, honestly. It flexes, it's durable, and it's light. But that was because it was before they actually made a 300L skid plate. Like, I was one of the first people to have the 300L. I think it's a necessary upgrade to offer the protection, and there's a lot of skid plate options out there now, so you would have to take your pick on what you really want. I'll put some in the Amazon store for you guys to check out, and the same with the crash bars. I'm currently not running crash bars, but I do feel that if you get a new Rally, you should get them so your fenders don't end up looking like mine. And honestly, it doesn't look that bad. It might actually look better, to be honest. But protect your motorcycle. Okay, now on to tires. I feel like tires are one of the biggest upgrades you can do, especially since they are something you can completely tailor to how you use the motorcycle. Now, I have experimented with multiple different dual sport tires, and the stock IRCs leave a lot to be desired. They're not great on-road, they're not great off-road, they're just kind of mediocre. Now, I ride a lot of sand, so for me, an aggressive tire that also is going to last a long time on the road is a must. Currently, I'm experimenting with the Tusk D Sports, and after I've run them for another few hundred miles, I think I'll make a review on the tire overall. But previously, I've really enjoyed the MT21 or 16 in the front and D606 in the rear. I also really enjoyed the AC10 from Michelin, but they no longer make that tire. I believe they replaced it with another model. Now, the Tusk and the D606 are very hard compound. They last a long time, but they're also very hard to mount. So if you're mounting them yourself, keep in mind that they may be a bit hard to do a tube swap in the trail. One reason why I feel like tires are so essential, because it allows you to build trust in your motorcycle. As a dual sport rider, when you start to take turns and you start to lean the bike, you want to know that it's not going to slide out from underneath you. And I feel that you rebuild this confidence every time you try a new tire. You start to go a little bit further, you start to feel the limitations of the tire and how it's going to perform off-road. And this can really make a difference if you're going to make it up a hill, make it through the mud, or if you're going to lay the bike down. So tires are very important. A lot of the stuff I do, I just would not be able to cut it with the stock IRC tires, so they're usually one of the first things I change. Alright, next, right after tires, we have to talk about gearing and chain. Now, I did a whole video talking about tire size, talking about gearing, and how your tire size will slightly change your gearing. And me personally, I like more low and grunt, but all that aside, by changing your sprocket and your chain, you can actually feel a lot more throttle response. Well, how does that make sense? Well, it's rotational mass. I personally go with a big rear sprocket that's aluminum. I know some people don't like aluminum. It has like this bad stigma to it because it's a softer metal. But over thousands of miles, I've not had the aluminum sprocket wear out. I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole here, but let's do some quick math. If you are to add like a D606 or a Tusk tire to the rear, it's going to be a slightly larger, taller tire, thus de-gearing your motorcycle about 6%, which will lead to higher top speed and lower RPMs at certain speeds. But it will lead to less rear wheel torque and acceleration off the line. I personally would rather have acceleration off the line, so I like to add teeth. The increase of 12 millimeters aside will take 3 teeth to mitigate. I usually go with a 45 for something like the Rally, which will bring my rear wheel torque 4% over stock, which is not that big of a deal, but also gives me a little more low and grunt. Now, if you're looking for a sprocket, which it's actually pretty hard to find, I'll post a picture here. I have it in my Patreon. You can just go back to my Patreon, click the link, free content, scroll down, and you'll see the company I use for aluminum sprockets. The 300 and the Rally are not exclusive to the sprockets. There's a couple different other motorcycles that the sprockets will fit on, and I have the whole list there. The only thing you'll have to do is get different different bolts, super inexpensive, just with a tapered head because the stock sprocket has a flat head bolt. Then you're ready to go. It's a super simple, easy task to switch them out. And then with the chain, we're going to go with an X-ring, which is more durable, lasts longer, won't stretch, has internal lubrication, and all you really have to do is clean it up, wipe it down with some WD-40, and this chain will basically last forever and offer less resistance, which for a low horsepower motorcycle makes a big difference. I didn't want to take too much time on this particular set of mods, but I wanted to give you enough information so you're completely informed on the situation. And also in my Amazon store, I'll link the chain that I use. All right, next let's talk about suspension. Suspension is the big one that everybody says you need to do. On my 300 Rally review, I went over and I showed what the suspension is like for a 240-pound rider, myself going over whoops. It's not as bad as people make it out to sound, but if you are doing extreme off-road riding or you just feel like the bike sags too much and the preload is not helping you, then you're going to look into suspension. Now, as far as the front suspension, I don't have much to talk about that. I haven't done it. I've just been reading up on it. I might do it one day in the future, but the rear suspension is really where you need the biggest upgrade if you're looking for a suspension. Now, my suspension is from Cogent Dynamics, and honestly, I can't see it better any other way. The reason being is for $759, that's how much my rear shock cost, which is comparable to almost every other model I've seen out there. But not only that, they ask you a plethora of questions and then hand build the shock from scratch. They ask you your weight. Will you be wearing gear? Will you be riding with a pillion? Will you have bags? They ask you everything to dial in your shock specifically for you. And for that price and completely custom for you, I can't see it being better going anywhere else. Now that being said, because they are building it from scratch, that it may take longer than from you just getting one that's sitting in a box somewhere. But if you're interested in getting something completely custom directly from them, perfect for all your needs, then I think Cogent Dynamics is the best option on the market that I've seen so far. I'll have more on that coming soon when I do the complete video talking about the suspension, and we'll review this shock and we'll go over it together. But if you're looking for something like this, search them up on Google, reach out to them, talk to them, get something made custom. It's pretty awesome. I also X-rayed it. I'm going to X-ray the stock shock. We're going to be able to compare them because that's what I do for a living. I'm a non-destructive radiographer, so we'll be able to see the inner workings of these two shocks compared and see why the Honda is lacking so much compared to a custom built one. So that's also upcoming video. All right, next, I want to say for anybody that uses this motorcycle basically for its purpose, you're going to want a rear rack. Now, I personally went with a Tusk aluminum rack because I don't want to add too much weight to the motorcycle. That being said, it was completely out of stock when I went on my last trip, so I had to improvise. So I got a 250L rack, which I thought I would have to make some welding or some modifications to make it fit, but no, it actually fits. The only difference is it doesn't have rear bolt holes for the rear bolts. I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I think everybody should get a rack, and I think a Tusk aluminum rack is the way to go. Now, mine just kind of worked out. I wanted to see if it would fit. It sits there, and the front attachment points fit fine. The rear part just kind of sits on the back bolts, which wasn't a problem at all, especially when I threw a bag on there and I tied it down with some rock straps. It didn't move at all. So if you're in a pinch, you can do this. You can use a 250L Tusk rack, but I would say get the proper one. And I recommend this rack particularly because, like I said, I want aluminum, I want it light, has plenty of tie down points, so it's not really too intrusive when I don't have a bag on the back. So yeah, the Tusk rear rack, that's the one I would recommend. Also, I want to talk briefly about my tank bag. I tried multiple different tank bags in the past, and I found that Nelson Rig tank bags are pretty amazing. I used the small one on my Dual Sport, but for this one, I used the big Adventure bag. This bag's pretty awesome. The one downfall about this bag is it's not completely waterproof. It's one of those ones where they give you like the elastic bag to put over top of it to make it waterproof, which was fine. I only rode one day in the rain in this last trip, and it had plenty of room. It's a big bag. It's good for multi-day moto camping trips. Now, if you wanted something more like a Dual Sport bag, the one I reviewed in the past is the Hurricane Dual Sport bag. Nice and small. You can fit a bottle of water, maybe a mini drone, a couple things in there, your phone if you want. Doesn't have a lot of room. I wanted the bigger one this time because I had a lot of camera gear, and that's the safest spot for my drone and camera gear, so I went with this. But it held up well. It gave me no problems at all. Some people were asking what bags I used. I used the Rhino Walk bags. They were very inexpensive. I reached out to them and said, hey, could I get some samples? So far I put 600 to 800 miles on these bags. They held up really well. I'm going to do a full review on them, but I'm just not ready yet. I just feel like I want to get some more use out of them to be clear if the durability is good. But they've been amazing, and they're very inexpensive. Okay, before I get into some honorable mentions, there's one other thing I want to talk about, and this is a mod I don't particularly have yet. One of my riding buddies has, and I was thinking about doing it for a rally to completely change the aesthetic on the front, and that is a rally tower. Man, his motorcycle looks sharp with this tower. And the lighting is probably better than on the Rally. I don't know, I'm really considering it. Let me know if you guys have one of these or if you like it. It's a steep price, coming in at $500 to $600, but man, it makes this motorcycle look so cool. It almost gives it the front look of the Tenere. If you watch my Tenere compared to the 300 Rally review / comparison video, I actually really love the way the Rally looks, except for the front, and I love the way the Tenere's front looks. I don't like the Tenere's low fender. So if you were to put this tower on the front of it, I think that would make the Rally a superior looking bike all around. So let me know your opinions about that. And honorable mentions, I would say to get a bigger foot for your kickstand, maybe get some foot pegs. The shift lever is one that I would highly recommending for this motorcycle. I had a couple times where I was missing gear and I couldn't figure out why. And then I looked down and I found out that my shift lever was a little bent. It must have got caught on a log or something, and I was rubbing against the case. And because of that, I couldn't push it up in gear all the way at some points. So it would just leave me like missing second gear and just rev bombing it a little bit when I was trying to take off. I used the Tusk one in the past. It's a direct fit. It's great. Never bends. Has a folding lever, so when you drop the bike, it won't get hurt. Now, the brake lever is a little bit flimsy too, and it bends, but it's so malleable that if it ever bends, you just go down there with your hand and bend it back in place. I haven't found that one to be such a big deal if it bends. It's just the shift lever gave me some issues. And that will conclude my top mods for the Honda 300 Rally. I want to thank these patrons for their support. These guys are awesome. And if you want to support this channel, go check out the Patreon. It's the best way you could support and help grow this channel. Any income generated there will go directly into building the channel, the t-shirt designs, all that stuff. And on there, I'm doing mods, drone shots, extra videos I don't put on the YouTube channel. So if you want to see more motorcycle off-road content, be sure to check out the Patreon. Let me know if you watched this long so I can give you your heart down in the comments below. And as I say, if you see somebody else with the heart, you know why. Because they watched this long or they had the one stellar comment of the video. Those are the only people that get the hearts. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe out there. My name is Andrew, and this is Motorcycles Off-Road. Thanks, guys.
Not that I can see.
Wow.
I'm getting it.
Alright, let's finish this thing.
Alright. No, for me.